Hello, welcome to Ikate's Crossing. As we continue our journey of the secret of Shambhala, we're up to chapter 4, and this is part 2 of that. I'm using the Meraki Tarot. So let's have a look and see what the message is for today. What are we going to reflect on as we continue reading this chapter? Let's have a look. What are we going to continue on? Let's just take a minute to sort of breathe. Taking a minute to sort of reflect. Okay, so. Okay. It was kind of interesting. I hope that's just one card there. Can never tell. Right. Let's have a look. Is there anything else that we need to know while we're reading this chapter? Is there any more of the message that we need? Okay. This one here. Right, let's have a look and see what message have we got as we continue reading this chapter. First card we have is the High Priestess, which tells us that secrets are being revealed. Hidden knowledge. This is about knowledge that comes from ancient times. This is what's coming into the forefront of our journey here. Okay, we've got Eight of Wands, so it tells us that we're moving quite quickly through this journey, which is quite important for us. As this knowledge comes into the forefront quite quickly, we seem to be assimilating it a little bit quicker. Okay, it does seem to be moving forward. Here we have the Magician, which tells us to look below the surface. Remember to not just look at what we see. There's always more happening behind the scenes. There's more stuff happening below the surface. We need to sort of dive a little bit deeper into what's going on here. We need to use our skills and our abilities, the tools that we have to be able to move forward on our journey here. Here we have the Ten of Pentacles, which tells us that we have wealth arriving. We have this abundance, this prosperity in some way. Now, I'm not talking about finances or anything like that because we're looking at this book. This seems to be sort of a well-being energy that seems to be coming in, a wealth of abundance, which seems to be quite important here. And here we've got the Page of Wands. So the Page of Wands to me is about, yes, we've got the enthusiasm and the drive. There's still a lot of stuff that we need to experience, but we need to listen to the messages that are coming through. We need to acknowledge the energy that's going on. We need to have a look below the surface. Being able to sort of, I get the sense with the snake here, so it stood out quite strongly, the sense of shedding our old skins, knowing we're protected. The umbrellas sort of stood out quite strongly there as being protective. Okay, being protective here. It does feel like we're walking through a new awareness, a new shift in our perception about what's going on here. It's very much about, what do we need to let go of to be able to gain what we need in our life. I just feel like everything's sort of tied up in a little bow. If we can sort of, I think we need to unleash that bow. I think we need to untie, not everything's always in a neat package. We sort of need to let things go a little bit, allow things to be free in many ways. What an interesting message coming in. Okay, so let's continue this chapter 4 as we continue the secret of Shambhala. Right, the next morning I slept late and went through a series of Tai Chi movements with Yin. We waited for as long as we could for Yin's friends, but they never showed up. We realised we'd have to risk going with only one vehicle after all. and loaded up the jeep, pulling out right at noon. Something must have happened, Yin said, looking over at me. He was trying to be strong, but I could tell he was worried. We were heading up the main road again through a thick sand blown haze that had covered most of the landscape and obscured our view of the mountains. It would be hard for the Chinese to see us in this, Yin remarked. That's good, I said. I'd been wondering how the Chinese knew we'd been at the restaurant in Shambhala, so I asked Yin what he thought. I'm sure it was my fault, he said. I told you how much anger and fear I felt towards him. I'm sure my prayer field was bringing me what I was asking for. I looked hard at him. This was too much. Are you telling me, I asked, that because you were fearful, your energy went out and somehow brought the Chinese to us? No, not merely the fear. We all get a good general kind of fear. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about letting my mind go into fearful visions of what might happen, what the Chinese might do. I've seen them operate in Tibet for so long. I know their methods. I know how they oppress individuals through intimidation. I allowed myself to see them coming for us in my mind as a little vision, and I wasn't doing anything to counteract that image. I should have caught myself and envisioned in my mind that they would no longer be so antagonistic towards us, and then held that expectation. My fear in general was not what brought them. I went unconscious and held a specific image and a specific expectation that would have come in on us. That was the problem. If you hold a negative image too long, it can eventually become true. I was still awed by the whole idea. Could this be correct? For a long time I'd observed that people who feared a particular event, a burglary at their house for instance, or getting a particular disease or losing a lover, often experienced just that occurrence in their lives. Was this the effect Yin was describing? I remembered the fearful image I'd had earlier in Shambhala, when Yin had left to find someone to go with us. I'd imagined being alone in the jeep, driving around lost, which is exactly what had ended up happening. A chill went through me. I had been making the same mistake as Yin. Are you saying that everything that happens to us that's negative is the result of our own thoughts? I asked. He frowned. Of course not. Many things merely happen in the natural course of living with other human beings. Their expectations and actions play a part too, but we do have some creative influence, whether we want to believe it or not. We have to wake up and understand that in terms of our prayer energy, an expectation is an expectation, whether it's based on fear or faith. In this case, I wasn't monitoring myself closely enough. I told you my hatred of the Chinese was a problem. He turned and our eyes met. Also, remember when I told you, he asked, that at these higher levels of energy, the effect of our prayer field is very quick? Out there in the ordinary world, individuals still have a mix of fear images and success images, so they tend to cancel each other out and keep the effects low. But as these levels, we can affect what happens very quickly, even though a fear image will eventually collapse the strength of our field. The key is to make sure your mind is focused on the positive path of your life, not on some fearful expectation. That's why the second extension is so important. If we make sure we stay in a state of conscious alertness for the next synchronicity, our minds stay on the positive and off our fear and doubt. Do you see what I mean? I nodded, but said nothing. Yin focused again on the road. We have to use this power right now. Stay as alert as you can. We could pass the van very easily in this haze, and we don't want to miss them. You sure they were heading in this direction? Yes, I said. Then if they stopped to spend the night the way we did, they wouldn't be that far ahead. All morning we travelled, still heading northwest. As much as I tried to keep it up, I couldn't stay in the state of conscious alertness Yin was describing. Something wasn't right. Yin noticed and kept looking over at me. Finally he turned and said, Are you sure you're expecting the full synchronistic process? Yeah, I replied, I think so. He frowned slightly and continued to glance over at me. I know what he was getting at. Both in Peru and later in the Appalachians with the 10th Insight, I'd experienced a process to synchronicity. Each of us, or at any one point, has a primary question about our lives, something we're inquiring into given our particular life situation. In our case, the question was how we might find the Dutch van, and then will, and the gateway. Ideally, once we recognize the central question in our lives, we will have a guiding thought or an intuition about how to answer it. We find ourselves with such a mental image that would suggest going somewhere, taking some action, saying something to a stranger. Again, ideally, if we follow that intuition, coincidences will occur to give us information pertaining to our question. This synchronicity leads us further down our life path, and in turn to a new question. What do the legends say about this? I asked. They say, Yin replied, that humans will eventually learn that their prayer power can greatly influence the flow of their lives. By using the force of our expectations, we can bring forth the process of synchronicity more frequently, but we have to stay alert for the whole process, beginning with the next intuition. Are you consciously expecting an intuition? I haven't gotten anything yet, I said. But are you expecting one? He pressed. I don't know. I wasn't really thinking about intuitions. He nodded. You must remember that this is part of setting your field of prayer for synchronicity. You must stay alert and expect the whole process to come forth. The question, getting an intuition, and following it, and looking for the coincidences. Remind yourself to expect it all. Be alert for it all, and if you do, your energy will go out ahead of you and help bring the flow. He shot me a smile, meant to uplift my spirits. I took in a few breaths. Feeling my energy begin to return, Yin's mood was contagious. My alertness sharpened. I smiled back at him. I was, for the first time, appreciative of who Yin was. At times he was as fearful as me, and often he was too blunt. But his heart was into this journey, and he wanted more than anything to succeed. As I thought about this, I slipped into a daydream of Yin and me walking through rocky sand dunes at night, somewhere near a river. There was a glow in the distance, a campfire that we wanted to reach. Yin was leading, and I was glad to follow. I looked over at him again. He was staring hard at me. I realized what had happened. I think I just got something, I said. I had the thought of us walking towards a campfire. Do you think that means anything? Only you would know, he said. But I didn't know. How am I supposed to know? If your thought was a guiding intuition, it would have something to do with us looking for the van. Who was at the campfire? What was the feeling? I don't know who was there, but we wanted to reach the campfire very badly. Is there a sandy area nearby? Yin pulled the jeep off the road and stopped. The haze was beginning to lift. This landscape is all rocky sand for another 100 miles, Yin said. I shrugged my shoulders. What about a river? Is there a river somewhere close? Yin's eyes lit up. Yes, just past the next town. Paryang, about 150 miles up ahead. He paused for a moment, smiling broadly. We must stay very alert, he said. It is our only lead. Okay, that's it for today. Don't forget to check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. Take care. Blessed be.